Hey everybody, Steve Colescott here for the Iron Subculture Podcast, covering all aspects of powerlifting, bodybuilding, and strongman training and nutrition.
Come on, Steve!
Of course, the children from this assembly line belong to the state to be scientifically trained for conquest.
Okay, we're here with Matt Wenning. Matt, it's been quite a while that you and I originally met.
Yeah.
I was doing my second article for Flex Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what your life was like and your training was going on during that period.
That was in what, 2006? 2007?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Right it was right before you left.
Yeah. Yeah, so it'd be about 2007. So I mean, at that time, I had just graduated with my master's degree in biomechanics. Was super excited to move to Columbus from Indiana and train. And we had developed this, or started to assemble this massive group of guys that were just unbelievable. We had Greg Panora coming from Maine. We had Vlad Hasselhoff coming from Iran. We had in Russia, and we had myself, and Chuck Vogelpool was still slightly in his prime. That group was just going to be unbelievable. I mean, our average squat at that time was around 1,030 pounds as the group, where the world records were barely creeping over 1,100. So it was a huge honor for me to come over as one of the top guys to start pushing the numbers, and I had felt like it was my time to kind of shine because I was out of school at that time. It was hard for me to train at a pro level while I was getting my master's. It was just, at the time where I went to school was the top school for exercise science. So you're talking 40 to 50 hours a week in the gym helping other athletes, and then 20 to 30 hours in the lab doing your research to graduate. So I was pretty much burned out of school and ready to really push physically. And so I moved here to Columbus, Ohio to train at Louie's place.
I've heard you mention that as a young man, class world powerlifting champion Larry Pacifico told you that the secret is to only give 90%. Describe what this means and how lifters should follow that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it means to kind of always save a little bit in the tank in training. So what Larry Pacifico was talking about, or specifically talking about, was save PRs for contests. Don't do PRs in gyms. So what I started to realize was that you needed to push hard in the gym to get better, but how much of that was too much. And what I started to realize is that when I felt like I went to about 90%, I was always recovered and prepared to hit PRs in contests. So if you look at my track record from 2006, when I pretty much turned pro, 2005, 2006, all the way to when I retired in 18, I was constantly getting better, whether it was equipped or raw. And a lot of that reason was I saved it for the contests. So I would push up to see kind of where I was at, but leave that 10% variance to recover. And Larry Pacifico won more back-to-back titles than I think any lifter ever. And he went to the contest to win the contest and make small PRs, but still beat everyone. Doesn't mean he necessarily went to full max. And I think that's where it gets difficult in our head, that we want to go as hard as we can go. But I find that if you're trying to be the best you can be in a 10 or 15 year process, you're probably going to have a shorter career than that, because your body can only withstand so many true maximal lifts. And Eddie Cohen and I both agree that once you become elite, you probably really only have about 10 of those ultra maxes in your body ever. 10. So you want to spend those in the gym, or you want to spend them breaking records?
Okay. You train with Chuck Vogelpool, and he is known for his insane training intensity. How does that fit with Pacifico's advice?
It didn't. So, but the thing of it is that Chuck realized that every time I went to a meet, I got better. So after about 6 or 8 months, 9 months of training with Chuck, he kind of let me be my own guy. So I trained with him and we pushed each other, but if I wanted to back out, there was no more push. And as we trained longer and longer, he started to realize that my ideal was working better for the entire group, including himself. So you remember that when we left Westside and went to Lexen, all of our numbers got insanely better. One of the major reasons for that is that we followed more of my ideas of the training protocol, and Chuck learned to kind of recover himself. And that was the first time Chuck Vogelpohl had ever benched 500 raw, is when he finally listened to what I was doing and starting to recover. He was just beating himself up too much.
Okay. Outside of Vogelpohl, who are the strangest people at Westside and what made them strange but great lifters?
Well, I mean, you had Phil Harrington. He was just completely, I mean, I think he was clinically schizophrenic, but he could turn on a switch, that intensity switch, that was just totally crazy. Greg had adversity. I mean, he would live in a car when he was training with us. He would literally sleep in his car. He had nowhere to stay. And to watch those guys come in and grind like that, you got to have, one, a screw loose, but two, be intensely, drawn into what you're doing to be able to do that. I just found that we all had our instability in some way. I mean, I probably had my shit together more than the rest of the guys as far as all around life. But it's because I had a master's degree and I was trying to work myself in the field. I had a different push for why I wanted to be great in powerlifting. I felt like to be the best strength coach I could be, that I was going to have to walk it before I could talk it. And I think that's a big problem with our society in every field, is that we got all these people that have these experts that read these books, but who really puts themselves in the meat grinder to figure out how to get better?
One more question on Westside. What made Louie different from other lifters, such as like Rick Hussey, Larry Pacifico, Joe DeFranco, John Black, any of those others?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think they were all different for different reasons. I think DeFranco has a little bit more of a rehab background, but he's also worked with a lot of guys that are pretty messed up from the WWF, Pacifico is one of those guys that Louie could never beat, and they're both of their primes. They're about the same age. And Louie could do every drug, every style of training. You just couldn't beat Pacifico. He'd tell you that straight out. Pacifico had the gifts. He was the Michael Jordan of the time in lifting, which gave him a distinct advantage, but I don't think he knew as much as Louie. He wasn't as well read in training as Louie, especially at that time. But I think what made Louie unstable was the fact he had so many health issues young, with the trach in his throat, and that messed up his sleeping. I think it just caused him to have a lot of bipolar activity, where he would be a very good coach at one point and just something you just didn't want to be around at other points. And you had to kind of find that middle ground with him, and it was tough because it could change day to day. But what really made Louie powerful, and I think better, was he was very, very good at assembling groups. Now, whether that was because he already had a name, like Westside Barbell or whatever, he was very good at assembling people and making them compete against each other. And then when we get to meets, we were still trying to win against each other. We didn't care about other gyms because we knew if we were beating each other, we were probably beating everybody else.
Thanks so much. Hey, can you tell people how to get some of your information? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so we're at WenningStrength.com. That's the website. We do online coaching. We have a Patreon channel, which is a paid channel where we put workouts and we put special projects that we do that we don't show to everyone. We're also on Instagram, the Ludus Magnus Gym page, and also Real Matt Wenning. We post a lot of different exercises there. That's mostly what we feed out to, but then we're on also YouTube, and we have a huge, over 200 selection of library of exercises that we put, or different training things and questions like what you're asking is on our YouTube channel, Wenning Strength.
Okay. Good seeing you. It's been 3 or 4 years, so it's great to see you, and I appreciate talking to people.
No problem, man.